for the glorious return of Sadness McBad Choices. We were introduced to her in the very beginning of the mid-year freakout tag from 2023, and we honestly thought that as sad as she was, she had probably learned her lessons in 2023 and she was doing better in 2024. But no, my friends, she is not in fact doing better. Sadness McBad Choices is alive and well. She's she's me. It is me. I'm Sadness McBad Choices. I have learned nothing. And welcome back to another video. We're slowly cranking the wheel on my channel, getting back on track after the catastrophic ankle break of 2024. Tell me you're a depressed millennial without telling me you're a depressed millennial when you feel the need to peace sign everything, even when it is le tragique. It has been a struggle, but we have a permanently reserved seat on the struggle bus here on this channel. Toot toot. There's nothing we can't get through together. I mean, we got through the entire first half of this year together, and some of it wasn't half bad. I would say, looking back at last year's video, that Sadness McBad Choices is like 50% of the answers of this year's question, and the other half is like surprisingly hopeful. Maybe she's learned something. Or maybe my book choices for this year are just influenced by the last little scraps of luck that I have left over. All of this to say, welcome guys to the mid-year freakout tag, wherein I am clearly already freaking out. As always, I will link the original creators of this tag down below. Last year I changed up some of the questions of the tag finally to make them more applicable for my channel, and more or less we will be keeping those questions for this round also. Variety is the space of life. Alright, so question one is, how has your reading year gone so far? Now, I did look back at last year's video to try and get a feel for how I felt at this point in the year, and I think it's fair to say that how I felt was bad. By the midpoint of 2023, I think I had only found 2 5-star books that I would genuinely put on my top 10 of 2023 last, and I was so much questioning my reading taste and whether I knew how to find myself a 5-star anymore. So I am delighted to be able to report that so far 2024 has not been like that at all. As of literally this morning, I have so far in 2024 read 55 books. And I'm delighted to say that a good percentage of those books are 5-star books. However, one of the biggest differences between 2023 and 2024 is that this year I have reread so much more than I have in like any of the previous 5 years. Now, I have always been a rereader. Anybody who's been around my channel for like a good amount of time will know that I love to reread my favourites, but over the last couple of years I've kind of fallen out of the habit of it. I stopped allowing myself to do it as much. So on my 2024 bingo board from hell, I did use one of the squares to encourage me to reread, and I mean that has gone wonderfully, genuinely wonderfully, but it has got a little bit out of hand. I'm not sure while I'm sitting here filming this what percentage of my 2024 reads are rereads, but I will show it to you on the screen now so you will know. And I'm guessing that it's pretty high, maybe even like half of my reading so far has been rereads. Now, this percentage might be a little tiny bit skewed because one of the things that I chose to reread this year was a series of unfortunate events, which is 13 consecutive middle grade books. So overall, although I am very excited about my reading, and I'm definitely reading faster and reading more than I ever have in any previous years, which says that my brain health is probably better than it has been in like a long time, I also think that I need to bring a little bit of balance into my reading. Now, we know that as part of like having ADHD, object permanence is an issue, which is one of the reasons that I have so many different ways that I track my books, but also having got out of the habit this year of doing my tops and bottoms videos, which are the way that I wrap up my reading months, has also as a result ended up with me being a little bit blinkered to the books that I'm picking up this year and where my goals are. So I think I need to find a way to make like a bit on my spreadsheet or somewhere else where I can visually see the progress of each of my goals from my bingo board so that I can be a bit better at making sure that I stay on track. Oh, and just as a final sort of word on 2024's reading so far, I still am not entirely sure that I know my reading tastes at this point. Existential crisis coming to a vlog near you soon. The next question is one that I usually struggle so much with, and it is, what is the best book that you have read so far in 2024? But this year I am not struggling at all. This book immediately popped into my brain as soon as I read this question, and that book is The Will of the Many by James Islington. Now, because of the way that I'm filming videos right now, which is very much kind of like when my pain levels are okay to be sitting at my desk, because of that I don't know whether you've heard me talk in any kind of extensive way about this book so far, so I'm just going to cover it here like you've never heard me talk about it before. This is the first book from James Islington in a new high fantasy series, and it follows Viz. Viz is a lot of things at the beginning of this book. He is a prison warden, he is somebody who fights in an illegal fight ring, and he is also an orphan who does chores at the orphanage that he stays at. The orphanage which took pity on him when he rolled in a few years earlier, ill and parentless and desperately in need of help. Because what Viz was actually running away from when he got to this town is something that forms like the backbone of the mystery of this book. Very, very early on we discover that not only is Viz lying to everybody around him, but maybe, just maybe, he's also lying to us. The world in this book and the landscape of it is very heavily influenced by the Roman Empire, which absolutely appealed to me, and because of that it has of course been like really strongly likened to Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which I think is a fair comparison in some ways because the plot is also similar, because we follow Viz from this like shady collection of jobs that he does to being adopted very suddenly into a high-ranking family and being inserted into the university-like institution in this world which trains the hierarchy, wherein he is spying on multiple people and he has multiple different missions going on at once. And I absolutely adored the reading experience of this. I flew through it. I do actually have the first in the Lycanius trilogy from James Islington sitting on my shelves right now, and I just never picked it up. Like many other first in a fantasy series, it's been sitting there for ages and I just haven't gone any further with it, and now I'm absolutely kicking myself because I'm desperate for the sequel to this one. It's so well written, there are so many lies, there are so many twists and turns, it boggled my brain, it was just so much fun. Next up we have got the question, what is the best sequel that you have read so far in 2024? And my guys, your girl has not been doing very well with her sequels goal at all this year. Getting books off of my series tracker has been a big issue. Putting books onto it we've been mega successful with, but actually like maintaining the ongoing series that I have there we have not done so well at. I would give myself a great big and in fact my series tracker is one of those things that I am so desperate to make actual tangible progress on for the second half of this year. I am going to be focusing on it more and more. Laser focus, in fact. And I say this because when I looked back at all of the 55 books that I have read this year, very few of them outside of a series of unfortunate events have been sequels. So apart from Dark Age by Pierce Brown, which I am finally almost finished, hallelujah, praise be, the only other book that I really have to talk about for this question is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. I was so scared of picking up this book because I absolutely devoured The Raven Boys. I inhaled it, I immediately finished it and wanted to start it again and had to actually physically restrain myself and be like, absolutely not. So I was scared. I was scared that I was not going to have the same wonderful reading experience with the second book in this series that I had with the first. But I should not have been scared, my friend, because the second book in this series was for me almost even better than the first one. It is just so good. If you, like me, have been hiding under a rock your entire reading life and have just never ended up picking up this very classic upper end of YA fantasy series, then allow me to demystify it for you. This series follows Blue. She has grown up in a family of clairvoyants and people who are able to sort of like read fortunes in the future and stuff, but she cannot do that herself. Instead, she only acts as like a battery to the people around her. On this same night, every single year, her family gathers together in a churchyard to watch the procession of the soon-to-be dead. But this year, out of the blue, a ghost chooses to speak only to Blue. That ghost's name is Gansey. Gansey is a raven boy, which means that Blue would ordinarily not look the roads that he is on. The raven boys go to Aglenby Academy, which is a private boys' school, and they very much have the reputation in this town for not treating people well. But days later, when Gansey and some of his friends turn up in the restaurant that Blue works at, she realises that maybe fate is trying to cram them together. There are some very classic YA tropes going on in here, but I absolutely adore the characters. I love them so freaking much, and I'm so excited to carry on with the rest of the series this year. The next question is a new release that you're highly anticipating, that you want to read but that you haven't got to so far in 2024, and for this I have two separate books. One of them I've had for a couple of months now and I just haven't got around to that, and that is the Underhistory by Kaaron Warren, I think. I actually went out of my way to track down the exact publishing assistant who was working on this book to request it. Just wait till you hear the plot and you tell me whether you think that this is a Leanne book or not. So it is about an elderly woman, a chick, whose big creepy rambling house, a tick, years and years before was damaged when a plane purposefully crashed into it. And our main character in this one has spent her entire life rebuilding this house, but not only in the memory of how it was when she was little, but also themed rooms that are about all of the different people who once lived in this house and all of the different mysteries of how they died. One day she is taking the last tour group around this house, which consists of a small family and then a couple of random men. From the minute she sees them, she realises that they are not good people and that they are clearly planning something, and that when they get to the end of this tour there's going to be nobody else there to stop them from doing whatever it is that they are planning on doing, whether that's hurting this small family or robbing her. However, our main character is no frail old woman, and as far as she's concerned, all of the ghosts in this house are definitely on her side, and she starts to tell them the real history of this house and unfold a very different kind of tour for them. So that one is one that I'm very excited for, and I have that in my sticky hands. And in fact, the second one I have in my sticky hands, because I literally just picked it up, haven't even had time to add it to my acquisition spreadsheet yet, and that is How to Become the Dark Lord or Die Trying by Django Wexler. And once again, I haven't read any of their other books, but this one is absolutely popping off on my feed. So many people who I trust are reading it. So this one is about a girl who is caught in a time loop. She again and again and again is being resurrected by a high priest to go on this journey to try and defeat the Dark Lord over and over and over again. And she's on, I think at the beginning of this book, she's on life 230 something, and every time she dies horribly. So this time when she dies and comes back, she's like, screw it. I have been the hero my entire life. I have played by the rules. I have not done horrible things. I have tried to win this war by just being good. Now it's time to try winning this war by being worse than he is. The next question that we have is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of 2024? I have literally just done my most anticipated releases for the rest of the year and the start of 2025. Maybe like 2 videos back at this point, so I am not going to spend too much time on this because I have talked in long form about a lot of the books that I'm very excited for. But I think the one that's top most of my list is Death at Morning House by Maureen Johnson. Maureen Johnson, of course, writes the Truly Devious series, which is a series that I am dearly devoted to. Death at Morning House is about a character who has her whole summer ahead of her. She's going to be house sitting for the summer. She and her girlfriend are going to have a lot of time to spend together, and then the first house that she is house sitting goes up in flames and the entire town blames her for it. So of course she can't get a summer job anywhere else and is forced to literally go off the mainland to Morning House, which is a huge old rambling museum on an island which has a lot of history about it, and she ends up being one of the museum people who takes you around on tours. Lots of similarities happening here. However, some weird things also start happening at Morning House, and our main character is like, hold on, lots of weird things are happening around me. Am I the problem? This one again just sounds like it's going to be one of Maureen Johnson's true sort of like mind twisty train off the track kind of books, and I want it. Oh, the next question is, what is your biggest disappointment of 2024? Now, my DNF shelf on Goodreads has never been so healthy, you guys. I am in my if it does not please you, it does not serve you era, and I am clearing like backlist titles out of my house at an extraordinary rate to give up on new purchases at the same kind of rate, because just because it's new and it's shiny and everybody's chatting about it does not mean that it's going to work for you, or that you have to keep it or force yourself through it just because everybody else thinks it's amazing. And that has happened to me with a couple of books so far this year. So one that I think is going to cause the most consternation and booing amongst you guys is Evocation by S.T. Gibson. You guys know that I really liked Diary of Blood when I read it, but her follow-up, I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, this one, I also DNF'd that this year, and then I DNF'd Evocation. And I think I'm just going to have to accept now that S.T. Gibson is a one-hit wonder author for me, that Diary of Blood was like a good book because it had a lot of the things that I love in it. It had an unconventional queer romance at its heart, which I love, and it was a retelling of Dracula, and you guys know that I love retellings of classic horrors that are my favourites. So I think maybe that book was just situationally perfect for me, and it's not actually S.T. Gibson and their writing and, you know, their plots that I love, which is real sad, but also kind of fine. It means that I can scratch an author off my list. I don't have to keep buying their books and wondering if I'm gonna like them or not. I can just quite happily be like, you enjoy that, my friend, I will not be. The next question is your biggest surprise of 2024 so far, and guys, this is a weird one. So if you've been here for a little while, then you know that I abandoned a vlog that I was filming over my birthday because I got tremendously sick. But in that vlog, I picked up one of the books that I had purchased for 2024, and that book was Normal People by Sally Rooney. So let me tell you, when I picked this one up for the vlog, I did not have high hopes. I picked this book up secondhand completely on a whim because Sally Rooney is one of those authors that everybody is talking about all of the time, and I understand that I am not somebody who lives in the literary fiction world. Literary fiction is a smaller and smaller and smaller percentage of what I read every year, but I do always pick up some literary fiction which ends up being gems to me. Occasionally I like to just go out on a and try one that's super popular to see what the hype is. For some reason this really worked for me. I don't know why, and I feel a little bit embarrassed to say it, like I feel a little bit sheepish. Not because I think there's anything wrong with liking Sally Rooney, but because I was so determined that I was probably going to absolutely hate this, and my entire introduction at the start of this vlog was just like minimizing everybody's expectations because I know that this is so many people's favourite book ever, and I would not say in any way that it is my favourite book ever, but I actually loved it. I really enjoyed the reading experience of it. I listened to it on audiobook and I raced through it over 2 insomnia nights. In case you haven't heard of Normal People before, or you don't know what it's about because you don't usually come here for literary fiction, Normal People is about Connell and Marianne. They are 2 high school students who meet each other in high school, but they are not in each other's circles. Connell is like a very popular sort of lad's lad, but he's a very like gentle, quiet soul. He's just been scooped into the popular crowd really, and Marianne is not that. She is rich, which is not normal at this high school, so that's already something that sets her apart. But also she is quite smart, and she is not somebody who takes part in fashion very much or anything else that the popular kids like, and so she is very much ridiculed and ostracised. So they essentially start a relationship which is hidden from their schoolmates, which they never talk about in school. They don't look at each other in school. Eventually, of course, this all very much goes off the rails, and about a year later they meet each other in college as completely different people. There isn't any kind of determined plot in this one. It's very slice of life, which is actually I think one of the reasons why it worked so much for me. I feel like it's a really honest exploration of Connell's anxiety and depression. He suffers really badly through his life, but he doesn't recognise himself as suffering until he's in such a state. Whereas Marianne recognises that life can just do this to you, and so she's always kind of there in the background supporting him. But I actually really liked it, and I would genuinely consider reading another Sally Rooney, but I'm not sure where to go next because lots of people have lots of opinions on it. And yes, I have watched half of the TV show and had to drop it, but I will go back to it soon. and I do think they are perfect as Connell and Marianne. The next question is, who is your new favourite author that you've found in 2024? I haven't found as many new authors this year as I might otherwise have found, like in a normal reading year where I wasn't rereading quite so much. However, I can't just pick one here because some of the authors that I have absolutely loved trying out in 2024 are of course James Islington. It would be daft not to put him on this list. Am I going to be picking up the Lycanius trilogy before we get the sequel to The Will of the Many? Probably. This one's kind of a hard one because my brain goes, well, Sally Rooney might be a new favourite author, but realistically it might just be that this particular book really worked for you. Just the format, the plot, the characters, just this situation really worked for you. And I think it's interesting that I'm more willing to be dubious over Sally Rooney being a new favourite author than I am about James Islington, having also only read one of his books. But another author that again I have maybe or maybe not talked about yet, depending on the order that these videos come out in, is Jessica Knoll. At the time of filming this, I am just finishing Bright Young Women and I am immediately going to pick up The Favourite Sister, which is one of her backlist titles. I absolutely love her writing. It's so incredibly in that sweet spot of really dark, really stark, really confronting, a not conventionally likeable female character. Honestly, I just have been absolutely feral while I've been reading this, and I'm so excited that I've got a thriller author who has a backlist that I can check out. Now we are getting into the portion of the questions where I have changed them to suit myself. And so the next question that I have got here is, what is a backlist book for 2024 that has caught your eye? And for me, this is essentially all of the works of Eve Babbitts. You guys might or might not have heard about Eve Babbitts, depending on what kind of non-fiction you like, I guess. Eve Babbitts was a contemporary of Joan Didion. She wrote about California. Specifically, she wrote very much about being a woman in her 20s and then 30s in Hollywood in the 1960s and 70s, where more freedoms were suddenly being afforded. And later on this year, there is actually a book called Didion and Babbitts coming out, and the author has uncovered hundreds of letters and pieces of correspondence between the two of them over the years and has written a book about it, which I'm so excited for. Her writing is so specific and her essays seem at first like they're really about nothing. Slow Days Fast Company is written in a series of sort of like fictionalized essays to different men that she was dating, and each of the essays don't feel at first like they're doing anything, and then you get into them and suddenly you have learned so much about the time and the place and how people felt, about recreational drugs that were hitting the scene, about celebrity culture, about there's so much in these essays, it's insane. So the rest of Eve Babbitts' backlist is just like thrown itself onto my list. The next question is, what is your favourite genre from 2024? This is funny because I just recently did one of those like little viral tag things which exists on Instagram, and it was like, what are your all-time genre breakdowns? So for like all of the time that you've been tracking your reading, what are your highest read genres? And here's what I pulled off of Storygraph. Now Storygraph won't be entirely accurate because I haven't gone back to every single book that I've ever listed on it when I exported my Goodreads library there, so there will be some things that are off. And obviously Goodreads does have the issue of classifying like YA and children's books in with genres which they are not, their age ranges. Also has the issue that, for example, romance is really high up on my percentage graph here, and I don't read a lot of romance at all. But any book which has romance featured in it in any way as like a subplot or a side thing, that can be tagged as romance by users, and so it goes up in your percentages. However, I don't think it's very surprising that fantasy is at the top of this, or that the next ones are mystery, thriller and crime, which, if I'm going to be very picky, I don't read crime, so those will be thriller books that people have tagged as crime. However, as we can see, we also have like memoir and horror quite far up there, and the percentages are getting bigger and bigger every year. Last year I said for this one that I was really loving dark academia, but unfortunately as soon as I said that, I was pretty much let down by every dark academia Academia book that I tried thereafter. See A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid, which I am not going to stop hating on. But I think once again, if you look at the books that I have read so far in 2024, you will see that predominantly those are fantasy books. Obviously, there are still a lot of Terry Pratchett books on there because this is year 2 of Around the Disc in 800 Days, which is my complete Terry Pratchett read along that I'm running with my lovely friend Kirsty. I can't believe that we're in year 2 of it. But I would say that the books that I'm having the most fun with this year are definitely fantasy books. And then for the final question for me this year anyway, I have got, what are the books that you are looking forward to getting to in the second half of 2024? Like, what are your priority books? And for me, I have quite a lot of those. I of course want to finish The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Now there are 3 books as a follow-up to that, which I think is a completed trilogy, which follows one of the characters in this series several years into the future. Right now I'm unsure whether I'm going to also try and pick that up this year and complete the whole thing off, but we shall see. And the other book that is really high up on my priority list is The Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This is a standalone sci-fi. It is like a space opera. It's about a hotel which I think is going around the Milky Way. So it's transport as well as a luxury place to stay, but then some very strange guests check in and some weird things that start happening, and our main character, who turned up as a stowaway years and years ago and is now the manager, has to try and unpick things. So that is it, guys. Those are all of the questions for my mid-year freakout tag for 2024. I feel a little bit like I didn't freak out as much this year as I did last year. There was definitely more like going on in 2023's video. I feel like in 2024 I have more of a handle of myself and my reading, and although I'm having a great time here, I also still see the things that I need to fix and prioritize. So hopefully you guys will see the changes that this tag always evokes in my reading for the second half of the year, because it does always make me go, what were my goals? Oh no. If you have got this far through the video, then please leave me either a pink or a yellow emoji down below for Bright Young Women, which I am currently just absolutely obsessed with. I love giving you a theme and letting you guys go to town with it. And down below I would also like you to answer a question. I would like you to tell me what your best and your worst books so far in 2024 were. And as always, if you have any books to recommend to me based on any of my answers to today's questions, whether that's because I hated a book or I loved a book, then please leave that down below too, because we like to do the shopping here even if we don't like the consequences of it. If you are new to my channel and you would like to see how I get on with my goals and my bingo board for the second half of 2024, then please hit that subscribe button. And if you are a returning subscriber who was very excited to see me freak out this year yet again, thank you so much for your support. Please hit that like button on the way out because it really does help my channel, and I will speak to you guys very soon. Bye!